What's up, guys? Welcome to Jew Whiskey. I'm Jeff. Today I've got a list for you. We're going to be going over 7 extremely affordable whiskeys that might be worth picking up. Stick around. Okay, so 7 shoestring budget whiskeys. As the name suggests, these are all extremely affordable. So if you're looking for a decent dram for a very good price, this is the list for you. Be warned that these whiskeys are not great whiskeys, and if you spend a little bit more money, you can get, of course, better quality whiskeys. But for today's list, I just want to focus on the cheapest of the cheap. And listen, I will be the first to admit that these are not whiskeys that I would usually buy, and that's because I'm a snob. And not just about whiskey, just generally in life. I happen to be someone who is extremely entitled, I refuse to speak to the help, and I carry pepper spray around for when poor people try and make eye contact. But coming back around to whiskey, yeah, for the most part, actually, I don't buy a lot of these bottles on this list. I've bought them all before, and I like them. I thought they were decent, but typically I would spend a little bit more, and that would allow me bottles like Glenlivet 12 or Arran 10, which, even those, a little bit too pricey for the list for the standards we've set for ourselves today. And just to clarify, the standards are that they all need to be single malts, and they all need to be like sippable. These are not for putting into mixers. These are whiskeys that you would pour, put into a Glencairn, and enjoy as a dram. Or mix them, but the point is you could also do the first thing. In terms of budget, I'm giving us a maximum spending budget of $30 per bottle, roughly 23 pounds, and I know that is extremely low, but that's $30 here in Taiwan. This is one of the cheapest whiskey markets in the world, and I'm going with what I know. You might have to do a bit of mental gymnastics to find the equivalent price point in your market. Maybe you have to add like 10 or 20 bucks, or if you're in Australia or Canada, add, I don't know, 100. Finally, as always, I do have a mystery pour in the glass here. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video. I'll share with you what that is. I was too lazy to think of a clever hint today, so here's a blurred out picture of the bottle. That'll have to do. And let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into our review. Not our review. Let's jump into our list. In the meantime, if you'll kindly leave a like down below, that would be greatly appreciated. All right, so kicking off our list at number 7, we've got Tam Nan Double Cask. Now, this is an interesting pick because Tam Nan as a brand recently showed up on a video I did about meh whiskeys, which is just whiskeys that, fine, they might be decent, but I tend to just walk past them at the store. However, if I am going to pick up a Tam Nan, usually it is going to be this one. There's a couple of reasons why. Number one, I think it's as solid as any of the other ones, and it's the cheapest. This one comes in at under 20 US in my market, which I think is just absurd. This will not win any awards for the most interesting or exciting whiskey out there, but it's a good, easy, casual sipper. We get some fruity sherry notes in this one. It's gentle, it's rounded, it's not too young, it's not harsh. It is a basic whiskey, but it does have some nice flavors, and it gets the job done. So number 7. Tam Nan Double Cask. Coming in at number 6, I've got Glenlivet 12. Now, this might be a bit of a controversial pick. Some people would just never touch this stuff at all. Other people might say, don't get the Glenlivet 12, you're better off with the Glenfiddich 12. I usually prefer Glenlivet myself. This is a big brand, easy to find, affordable whiskey. It's good, and it works in a pinch. Fine, it is a little bit on the generic side, but it does carry the Glenlivet character, which is a good character. This is balanced, it's well-rounded, it's approachable, and it of course gets criticized for being like, mass-produced and very engineered. That's fine, but like I just said, it tastes okay. Is it great? No, of course it isn't great, but it is decent, and in my market, this is actually under 25 US, and for that price, I really don't have anything to complain about. I think it's a solid bottle, comes in at number 6, Glenlivet 12. Coming in at number 5, we've got a brand that most snobby enthusiasts like me don't really talk about, but normal people with a budget to respect who want a decent pour might actually know about this one. The brand is Glenmoy, and the one that I like from them is the Chardonnay cask. I do like the flavors that the Chardonnay casks impart on the whiskey. It's very inoffensive, it's very smooth, it's just a pleasant whiskey, and for something that comes in at 22 US dollars here in Taiwan, very affordable. Now, you might end up preferring some of their other offerings. They have stuff like sherried whiskeys, port whiskeys, peated whiskeys. They have a bunch, and it's actually a great brand to explore different styles of whiskey while staying on budget. But like I said, the one I like the most is the Chardonnay cask, so comes in at number 5. Next up at number 4, I've got another very big, very popular brand. I've got the Glenmorangie 10 here. Now, I've just dated myself by saying Glenmorangie 10. So if anybody here is watching from the future, greetings future humans, you might be confused. Because right now, at the time of recording this video in September of 2024, Glenmoy is in the process of phasing out the 10-year-old in favor of a 12-year-old. Now, I haven't tried the 12-year-old yet, and I assume it'll be a little bit more expensive. Luckily for now, this 10-year-old is well within our budget at $22 US. And what can I say about this one? This is a beautiful classic Glenmoy profile. It's very unpretentious. We get the house style, which is sort of like orange creamsicle type flavors. I'm a big fan. It's found everywhere, and as I said, it's very cheap. So this one had to make it on the list. Comes in at number 4, Glenmoy 10. Next up at number 3, we've got an interesting one because I think this is one of the few whiskeys on this list that would work well for both enthusiasts and casual consumers. In fact, if we had enthusiasts go through all of the whiskeys I put in this video, I think a lot of them would end up with this one being their number 1. And that's because this is actually a fully craft whiskey, which means it's 46.2%. Most of the whiskeys on this list are either 40 or 43%. It's also natural color, it's non-chill filtered, and that's what a lot of enthusiasts really look for in a good whiskey. That's sort of like a baseline for quality for a lot of people. The idea there being that they want a more natural whiskey and they want a higher ABV content just because alcohol tends to carry more flavor. Now, for this one in particular, be warned that this does lean pretty heavily into those virgin oak casks, and that's not going to be for everyone. Virgin oak casks are usually pretty active, so we get plenty of wood, we get plenty of vanillas in here. This is a rich and sweet whiskey. It's not nuanced, it's not complex, but it is flavorful and it goes down easy, which is why it's number 3 on this list. Virgin Deanston Oak. No, that's not right. Deanston Virgin Oak. Nailed it. Coming in at number 2, I've got a Knock 12. This is really good stuff. The issue with this one is that it's been quite a while since I last tried it. It's got to be at least a couple years. So I don't know if any of the newer batches have changed or if they're any different, but I'm recommending it anyway, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. A Knock is such a characterful whiskey that even with a bottle like this, which is 40%, I can still enjoy it. It's a classic Highland profile with a bit of a twist. We get honeys, we get cereals, we even get some exotic spices in here. And what's nice about this stuff is that it's not too generic, but it's definitely not like too weird. It's not an oddball whiskey in any way. It's just a good whiskey with its own personality. In my market, this goes for about 25 US, so I really can't argue with that. It's a good brand, it's got a good style. It's definitely not a fireworks whiskey, but it's a great casual sipper. Hits the spot for me, comes in at number 2, a Knock 12. All right, coming in at number 1, we've got probably the least popular release from an extremely popular brand. The brand is Arran, but this is not the much lauded 10-year-old, which didn't quite make the $30 cutoff. This one is the Barrel Reserve. I think the reason that this is probably the least loved whiskey in Arran's range is ABV. This one's 43%. Most other Arrans come in at least 46%, so they're more engineered for enthusiasts. They're more designed for enthusiasts. But something like this, regardless of the ABV, really good flavors here. This is bright, fresh, crisp, clean. It's a little bit sharp, very distillate driven. And that really works for me because I think that Arran's been leaning a little bit too heavily into the casks in recent years, especially for releases like the 10-year-old, which is still an excellent whiskey. I still love it. But this one kind of reminds me of the Arrans of old, where it's distillate and it's barley and it's more raw. I think another reason is that this one doesn't have an age statement. It's less rounded. It doesn't have the mass appeal of things like the 10-year-old. But I just love the character to this. I love the simplicity to this. I think the core flavors are excellent, which is why it's my number 1 pick. By the way, this one is just under $30 in my market. I think it's around $28, $29. So well worth that. It's a beautiful whiskey. Comes in at number 1, Arran Barrel Reserve. Okay, that was the list, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Obviously, I want to hear from you. So what are some great shoestring budget whiskeys that you usually go for? Now, keep in mind, I've said this many times already, I'm in a very cheap market, so you might have to sort of like be a little bit more flexible with your spending, spend a little bit more than I have to. As I said, everything on this list is actually under 30 US here, so keep that in mind. And I think it would be interesting if you guys could include the prices that you're paying for whatever I put on this list or whatever you consider a great shoestring budget whiskey, because prices and markets vary wildly. It's very interesting, but it's also baffling. So what are your bottle suggestions selling for? What are the bottle suggestions I put in this video selling for in your market? It's always kind of interesting to find out. I will brace myself for the answers out of Canada and Australia, though. You guys have my condolences. And finally, last but not least, if you stuck around to find out what the mystery pour is, your hint was this blurry picture. What I've got in the glass is... Oh. Yeah, okay, that's not very helpful. I've only got a sample, but this one is the Tam Nan Legacy. Now, there's a reason this one didn't make it onto the proper list and ended up being a mystery pour, and that's because out of all the whiskeys that I mentioned on this list, this is the only one I've actually got on hand. So what do we need to know about this stuff? It is a no age stated whiskey. It's 43%. I think there's some virgin oak in there. I didn't look into it. Is it good? Yeah, it's fine. It's not great, but it's also $25 in this market, and I think for that, it'll do. It'll do. I told you I was a snob. All right, I think that is it for today. So guys, thank you very much for watching. Guys and gals, thank you very much for watching. If you want to help out with the channel, I do have Patreon linked down below. I've also got PayPal there. Anything and everything helps. Do I have anything else? No. See you next time.